If you asked me a week ago, I would have told you my life was simple, not perfect but steady, the kind of steady you learn to appreciate once you hit your 60s. My name is Patricia, I'm 62, and for the longest time I believed I had the kind of family people brag about in church lobbies and Facebook comments. A husband who worked hard, a son who turned out fine, and a home that felt like proof I did something right. Yeah, turns out I was living in a highlight reel while the real movie was happening behind my back. 22, it was a Thursday evening, the kind that smells like comfort. Chicken soup bubbling on the stove, the windows fogged up a little from the heat, and me humming like I always do when I'm cooking. Old habit, keeps the mind calm, keeps the hands busy. My husband, Gerald, was down the hall in his office. He'd been working late more often lately, which I didn't love, but marriage teaches you to pick your battles. My son, Marcus, was visiting. He'd swung by after work, said he missed home food. I remember smiling like an idiot, thinking my baby still needs his mama. I heard them talking in the office, not arguing, not laughing. Just that low, serious tone men use when they think they're being strategic. I didn't mean to snoop. I wasn't creeping around like some detective. I just needed salt from the cabinet near Gerald's office because our kitchen layout is dumb. As I walked down the hallway, I noticed the office door wasn't fully closed, just cracked enough to spill light and a few words into the hall. I slowed down without even meaning to. That's when I heard Marcus say something that made my stomach drop like a stone in dirty water. "Dad, listen, my boss, Mrs. Chen, she's divorced. She's loaded, like loaded. If you divorce mom and marry her, you're set for life. I keep my job, maybe get promoted, everybody wins." I swear my whole body froze. My hand was midair like a paused video. For half a second I thought I misheard him, like maybe I was tired. Maybe the soup steam had gotten to my brain. Then Gerald let out this laugh, sharp, ugly, greedy. "You serious?" he said, like he was asking about a stock tip. Marcus sounded excited, like a kid pitching a new video game. "Dead serious, she's got money and connections. Mom's nice, but she's not, that's the part that hit harder than the divorce word. The casual way my son talked about me like I was an old couch you donate because it doesn't match the new living room vibe. Gerald lowered his voice, but I still caught it. "How much money are we talking?" Marcus didn't even hesitate. "Millions, she owns the company, think about it, no more bills, no more worrying, fancy vacations, big house, you finally get what you deserve. What you deserve." I backed away so quietly I barely heard my own breath. I walked back to the kitchen like a ghost, stared at the carrots on the cutting board, and realized my hands were shaking so bad I couldn't hold the knife steady. The soup kept boiling like nothing happened. The clock kept ticking like my whole world wasn't cracking in half, and right there in my own kitchen I made a decision. I wasn't about to be the everybody wins sacrifice, not this time. But here's the wild part, what I found later that night wasn't just a plan to dump me, it was proof they'd already started setting the trap. And when I tell you what I discovered in Gerald's private paperwork, you're gonna say, no way. I didn't confront them that night, nah, I'm not built like that. I've learned over the years that reacting too fast only helps the people who already think you're stupid. Instead, I played my role, smiled, stirred the soup. Asked Marcus if he wanted extra bread like nothing just shattered inside my chest. They ate like kings. Gerald talked about deadlines. Marcus scrolled on his phone, nodding along, acting like he wasn't just plotting my erasure 20 minutes ago. I watched them both the way you watch strangers on a bus, carefully, quietly, trying to understand who the hell they really are. After dinner, Marcus hugged me, actually hugged me. "Love you, Mom," he said like it was muscle memory. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask him how easy it was to sell your own mother for a promotion and a bonus. But I didn't. I just said, "Drive safe." Once the house finally went quiet, I moved. No hesitation, no fear. Just this calm, cold focus I didn't know I still had in me. Gerald always thought I was bad with paperwork. That's what he told people. Truth was, I let him believe that because it made my life easier. But back when we bought this house, I handled every document, every form, every signature. I knew where things were kept, even if he thought I didn't. His office smelled like coffee and arrogance. I opened the filing cabinet he never locked because, in his mind, I was invisible. Inside were folders labeled with boring names, taxes, insurance, investments, and then I saw one that didn't belong, a plain folder, no label. That alone was suspicious. Inside, bank statements, multiple accounts, large transfers, dates that lined up with the last 2 years, money moving around in ways that made zero sense for someone who claimed we were tight on cash. My heart started pounding, not panic, not fear, but anger. The kind that makes you sharper, not weaker. Then I found emails, printed, sloppy mistake. Gerald always said paper was safer. Safer for who exactly? There it was, messages between him and a woman named Lydia Chen. Friendly at first, then personal, then way too familiar for a business contact. Plans, trips, once everything is settled. That phrase kept popping up like a bad chorus, and then I found the real punch to the gut, a draft document. Divorce paperwork, not filed yet, but prepared, clean, organized, like he was just waiting for the right moment to drop it on me like a bomb. I sat in his chair holding those papers and laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was insulting. These two really thought they were running some mastermind operation while I was just over here knitting and aging quietly. Nah, wrong woman. I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures. Every page, every email, every account number. If there's one thing life teaches you, it's this: receipts matter. When Gerald came out of the bedroom later and saw the office light on, he paused. "You still up?" he asked, too casual. I looked up at him and smiled, a soft one, sweet, the kind that makes men underestimate you. "Just couldn't sleep," I said, mind racing. He nodded. "Happens." "Yeah, it sure does." I went to bed that night next to a man who thought he'd already won. He slept like a baby. I stared at the ceiling, wide awake, planning, because here's the thing they didn't account for: I wasn't broke, I wasn't clueless. And I definitely wasn't done. But the real twist: the next morning I got a call that flipped the entire game, because Lydia Chen didn't know everything Marcus and Gerald thought she did, and she definitely didn't know about me. The phone rang at 9:17 a.m. sharp. I remember because Gerald had just left for work, all confident and pressed like a man with a future upgrade already lined up. The house was quiet again, but this time it didn't feel heavy. It felt loaded, like something was about to pop. I almost didn't answer the call. Unknown number. I figured it was spam or one of those "you've won a cruise" scams. Funny how life works, because what came next was way more chaotic than a free vacation. "Is this Patricia Williams?" a woman asked. Her voice was calm, professional, but tight around the edges. "Yes," I said slowly. "Who's calling?" "This is Lydia Chen." "Yeah, that Lydia Chen." For a second my brain stalled, not fear, not shock, just pure disbelief. I had spent all night thinking about how I'd approach her one day, how I'd plan it, how I'd control the narrative. And here she was, calling me like it was a dentist appointment. "I hope this isn't inappropriate," she continued, "but I think we need to talk." I sat down hard. "You can talk," I said. "I'm listening." There was a pause on the other end. Then she exhaled like someone who'd been holding their breath way too long. "Your husband and your son have been misleading me." "Oh, so we were already past denial. Interesting." She told me everything. Or at least, everything she thought was the truth. Gerald had sold himself as a man stuck in a loveless marriage. Classic. Marcus had vouched for him, claimed he just wanted his dad to be happy. Claimed I was aware and emotionally checked out. I laughed. I couldn't help it. "I'm guessing that's not accurate," Lydia said carefully. "No," I replied, "it's complete nonsense." I didn't dump everything on her right away. That's rookie behavior. Instead, I asked questions. Smart ones: dates, conversations, promises, and with every answer the puzzle pieces snapped into place. Here's the kicker: Lydia wasn't planning to marry Gerald anytime soon. She was considering investing in a side venture he pitched, something he'd set up quietly using joint funds without my knowledge. And Marcus, he was positioned to benefit big time if that deal went through. They weren't just betraying me emotionally, they were trying to bleed me financially. That's when Lydia said something that made my spine straighten. "I did a background check," she admitted. "Something felt off." I raised an eyebrow. And a lot of the money he claimed was his isn't." Bingo. I told her about the accounts, the paperwork, the draft divorce file. There was silence on the line, heavy, angry silence. "So," she finally said, "they thought they were playing chess." I smiled. "Looks more like checkers." By the end of the call, we had an understanding, not friendship, not alliance, something better: mutual clarity. Lydia wasn't stupid and she didn't like being manipulated. Neither did I. When we hung up, I felt lighter, not relieved, resolved. That afternoon, Marcus texted me, "Hey Mom, you good? Dad said you didn't sleep well." I stared at the message for a long time before typing back. "Never better," I wrote, and I meant it, because now I knew the truth wasn't just on my side, it was weaponized. But what Marcus didn't know was that his little text gave me the perfect opening, and by the end of the week, he'd realized just how badly he misjudged his own mother. By Friday, I had a plan, not the messy, emotional kind people come up with when they're hurt. This was clean, quiet, surgical, the kind of plan that looks boring on the surface but Rex lives underneath. Step 1, information. I spent the morning doing what Gerald always assumed I couldn't: research. Bank records, property filings, LLC registrations. Turns out when you've been just a housewife for decades, nobody expects you to know how to dig. Big mistake? I followed the paper trail and found the shell company Gerald set up under a generic name, nothing flashy, just slick enough to hide money and reroute assets. Joint money, my money. Step 2, leverage. I booked a consultation with a lawyer that afternoon, didn't tell Gerald, didn't tell Marcus. Just me, my purse, and a USB drive loaded with screenshots and receipts. The lawyer didn't interrupt much. That's how I knew it was serious. When he finally leaned back in his chair, he said, "Your husband's in trouble." I nodded. "I know," he explained it clearly. "Fraud, financial misconduct, breach of marital fiduciary duty." All the scary words Gerald would pretend not to understand until they were printed on court paper. And Marcus? Well, aiding and benefiting from it wasn't a great look either. I didn't feel happy hearing that. I felt steady, like standing on solid ground after months of quicksand. Step 3, timing. That evening, Marcus came over again. No warning, no call, just showed up like he owned the place. Gerald was running late, which meant Marcus was alone with me in the living room, shifting on the couch, pretending everything was normal. "You've been quiet lately," he said. "So have you," I replied. He laughed nervously. "Work's been crazy." I looked at him, really looked. Same eyes he had as a kid, same nervous habit of tapping his fingers when he was lying. "I met Lydia today," I said casually. The color drained from his face so fast it was almost impressive. "You what?" he stammered. "Oh, relax," I said, sipping my tea. "She called me. Funny how life works." He tried to recover, but it was sloppy. "Dad said she was just a client." I nodded. "That's what he told me too." Silence stretched between us, thick, uncomfortable. Then I leaned forward. "Here's what's going to happen," I said calmly. "You're going to stop whatever little fantasy you and your father cooked up. No deals, no money games, no divorce surprises." Marcus swallowed. "Mom, you don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," I cut in. "You tried to trade me for a promotion." That landed. He looked down at the floor. For the first time, I didn't see arrogance or confidence. I saw fear. "Dad will fix it," he said weakly. I smiled. "He won't." When Gerald finally walked in later that night, he sensed it immediately. The tension, the shift, the fact that something had changed and he wasn't in control anymore. "We need to talk," I said. His jaw tightened. "About what?" "About everything," I replied. And that's when I placed the folder on the table. Gerald thought the folder was bluff until he opened it and realized I knew way more than he ever imagined, and what he read on the last page made him go completely silent. Gerald flipped through the folder like it was a bad joke he expected to end any second. At first, he smirked. Then his eyebrows pulled together. Then the color slowly drained from his face, page by page, like someone turning down a dimmer switch. "What is this?" he asked, but his voice didn't have any bite left in it. "Receipts," I said, "every single one." Marcus stood up like he might bolt. He didn't. Pride kept him glued to the floor, even though panic was written all over him. Gerald cleared his throat. "You don't understand how business works." I laughed, out loud, no holding back. "Oh, I do, you just didn't understand how marriage works." I pointed to one document, that account. "Joint funds." Another page, "That LLC formed without my consent." Another, "That transfer illegal." He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it again. Smartest move he'd made all week. Marcus finally snapped. "Mom, this is getting blown way out of proportion." I turned to him slowly. "You don't get to talk right now." That shut him up. I leaned back in my chair and crossed my legs, calm as hell. "Here's the deal. You can either play dumb and let the lawyers and courts explain this to you, or you can listen very carefully and do exactly what I say. Gerald's shoulders slumped just a little. That told me everything. What do you want? He asked. I smiled. Funny how that works. For years I wanted loyalty, respect, a husband and a son who didn't see me as disposable. Now I want control. Silence. No divorce filing, I continued. You freeze those accounts. You dissolve that shell company, every penny comes back where it belongs. Marcus looked like he was about to argue again, but one look at Gerald stopped him. And you, I said, turning to my son, are going to stay very far away from Lydia's business dealings. If I hear your name anywhere near that company again, I won't protect you. His voice cracked. Protect me from what? I slid a printed email across the table. From being named as a beneficiary in financial fraud. That did it. His tough guy act crumbled. Gerald rubbed his face with both hands. You're threatening your own family. No, I said evenly. I'm setting boundaries. Big difference. He looked at me like he was seeing a stranger. Maybe I was. Maybe I'd always been this woman and just forgot. I built this life, he muttered. We built it, I corrected, and you almost stole it. That night, Gerald slept on the couch. Marcus left without saying goodbye. The house felt quieter than it had in years, like all the fake noise finally drained out. The next few days were tense. Paperwork moved, accounts froze, calls were made. Gerald followed instructions like a man defusing a bomb with shaking hands. I watched, verified, double-checked everything. But here's the thing nobody tells you about taking back power. It doesn't end the story, it changes it. Because once people realize you're not weak, they don't always back off. Sometimes they strike back. On Sunday evening, I got a notification from my bank. A large withdrawal attempt, blocked, flagged. I smiled slowly. Because that meant Gerald hadn't learned his lesson. Not yet. And when I checked who authorized that last withdrawal attempt, I realized this wasn't just Gerald being stupid. Marcus had made a move of his own, and it was about to cost him everything. The authorization name hit my screen like a slap. Marcus Williams, not Gerald, not some mystery hacker. My son, flesh and blood. The same kid I stayed up with during fevers, the same kid I defended when teachers said he had an attitude problem. Turns out they were right just early. I didn't call him right away. That would have been too easy, too emotional. Instead, I screenshot everything, forwarded it to my lawyer, and poured myself a cup of coffee like it was just another Sunday night. By the time Gerald shuffled into the kitchen looking tired and guilty, I was already 10 steps ahead. Did you know Marcus tried to move money today? I asked, not even looking up. His face collapsed. What? Don't play dumb, I said. I know it was him. Account access, authorization trail, clean as day. Gerald sank into a chair like his legs gave out. He said he needed it temporarily. Said it was for work. I finally looked at him. And you believed that? He didn't answer. That was confirmation enough. I picked up my phone and called Marcus, put it on speaker. No hiding, no games, he answered on the second ring. Hey Mom, why did you try to steal from me? I said flat, calm, deadly. Silence. Then I wasn't stealing, I laughed. Boy, don't insult my intelligence on top of everything else. He exhaled hard. It was a loan. I was going to pay it back. With what money? I snapped. The promotion you thought you'd get by selling out your own mother. Gerald flinched at that. Marcus's voice got defensive. You don't get it. This was bigger than you. That line. That line sealed his fate. Listen carefully, I said. You have exactly one chance to fix this. You return every dollar, you sign a statement admitting the attempt, and you stay away from our finances forever. And if I don't, he shot back. I smiled, even though he couldn't see it. Then Monday morning, my lawyer files everything: fraud, intent, access misuse, and Lydia gets copied on all of it. That got him quiet real fast. You wouldn't do that, he said. I already did, I replied. Screenshots don't lie. The call ended without a goodbye. That night, Gerald tried apologizing, long speeches, tears, the whole performance. I let him talk himself out. Sometimes people need to hear how small they sound. I never thought it would go this far, he said. That's the problem, I replied. You never thought about me at all. The next morning, Marcus showed up, no attitude, no ego. Just fear and regret. He signed what he needed to sign, returned the money, avoided my eyes like a kid caught cheating on a test. I didn't hug him, I didn't yell, I just watched, because consequences don't need theatrics. By Wednesday, the house felt different, not healed, Not happy, just honest, and honesty is loud when you've lived in lies for years. Gerald asked me what happens next. I told him the truth. I'm deciding, because power isn't about revenge, it's about choice. But just when I thought the worst was over, a certified letter showed up at my door, one Gerald hadn't sent, and the return address made my heart stop. The envelope was thick, cream-colored, certified, the kind of mail that never brings good news. I signed for it, thanked the mail carrier, and stood there in the doorway way longer than normal, just staring at my name printed clean and bold like it owned the place. The return address wasn't Gerald's lawyer, it wasn't my lawyer either. It was Lydia Chen's legal firm. Now that made my chest tighten. I took the letter into the kitchen, sat down, and opened it slow, no rushing. I've learned that bad news doesn't get better if you sprint toward it. The first line told me everything I needed to know. Mrs. Williams, this letter serves as formal notice. Yeah, legal tone, no fluff, no feelings. But here's the twist, Lydia wasn't suing me, she was protecting herself. The letter explained that Lydia had terminated all business discussions with Gerald and Marcus. Completely, no deals, no investments. No future plans. More importantly, she was placing everything on record, timelines, conversations, promises made by Gerald, statements Marcus had backed up. In other words, she was building a paper shield. And she wanted me to know because my name came up. A lot. I laughed, but it wasn't funny laughter. It was the kind that bubbles up when you realize how close you came to getting dragged into a mess you didn't start. Gerald walked in mid-laugh. What's so funny? I slid the letter across the table. He read it once, then again. His hands started shaking on the third pass. She's cutting us off, he whispered. No, I corrected. She's cutting you off. He looked at me like a man watching his exit door slam shut. She's documenting everything. Exactly, I said, because when this blows up, and it will, she wants proof she wasn't in on it. Gerald sank into the chair. Marcus told her things about you. I tilted my head. Like what? He hesitated. Say it. That you were unstable, that you wouldn't handle the divorce well, that you might cause problems if you knew. I stood up so fast my chair scraped the floor. So he tried to paint me as the liability, I said slowly. While he was robbing me. Gerald didn't defend him this time, didn't even try. Later that day, Marcus texted, not called, texted. Mom, Lydia's lawyer contacted me. This is getting serious. I stared at the screen, feeling something weird clarity. I typed back, it's been serious, you just didn't think it applied to you. No reply. That night, Gerald finally said the words he'd been avoiding. I think Marcus needs to move out. I looked at him, really looked. That's not your decision anymore, I said. That's mine. The truth was ugly but simple. Marcus had crossed a line you don't uncross. Not with apologies, not with excuses, not with time alone. Trust breaks quietly, but it stays broken loud. I told Gerald I needed space, not a break, not a separation announcement. Space to think without manipulation, guilt, or pressure. He agreed too quickly. Fear does that to people. When I went to bed that night, I didn't cry. I didn't pray, I didn't spiral, I planned, because Lydia's letter wasn't a threat, it was a warning. And warnings mean something bigger is coming. What I didn't know yet was that Lydia wasn't the only one documenting the past. Someone else had been watching quietly for years, and they were about to step forward with evidence that would blow this whole thing wide open. The knock came on a Tuesday afternoon. Not loud, not urgent, just deliberate. 3 taps, pause, one more, like whoever was on the other side wanted me to know they weren't rushing and they weren't scared either. When I opened the door, I didn't recognize the woman at first. Mid-S, sharp eyes, plain coat, the kind of face that looks forgettable on purpose. Patricia Williams, she asked. Yes, my name is Elaine Porter. I used to work in compliance at one of Gerald's former firms. That sentence alone told me this wasn't a social visit. She asked if we could talk somewhere private. I let her in, poured coffee, and watched her hands. Steady, calm. This woman wasn't here for drama. I'm not here on behalf of Lydia Chen, Elaine said. I'm here because I've been sitting on something for a long time and I'm tired of pretending it's not my problem. She pulled out a slim folder. Worn edges, old paper, the kind that's been opened and closed 100 times by someone deciding whether to do the right thing. Gerald's been manipulating numbers for years, she continued. Small stuff at first, reimbursements. Expense padding, then bigger moves, shell vendors, money looping through accounts that looked clean on the surface. My chest tightened but my face stayed neutral. Why come to me? Because, she said quietly, you were listed as a joint beneficiary on several accounts. And if this ever went public, you'd be dragged in whether you knew or not. There it was, the thing I'd been dodging without knowing it. Elaine explained how she'd flagged irregularities years ago, how internal reviews were quietly shut down. How Gerald always landed on his feet while others were told to let it go. And Marcus? I asked. She sighed. Learned behavior, he wasn't the mastermind, but he wasn't innocent either. She slid the folder toward me. Inside were spreadsheets, internal emails, audit notes, dates, names, patterns, enough to bury someone who thought they were untouchable. I don't want money, Elaine said. I don't want revenge. I just don't want this landing on your head when it finally explodes. I thanked her, not with tears, not with speeches, just truth. After she left, I sat alone for a long time, not shaking, not angry, just clear. That evening, Gerald came home early, nervous energy, pacing. He could feel something shifting even if he didn't know what. Someone stopped by today, I said, his head snapped up. Who? A former colleague, I replied. Compliance department? He went pale. What did she want? I smiled. Closure. He didn't ask anything else. He didn't need to. The silence between us said enough. Later, I got a voicemail from Marcus. Long, emotional. Full of apologies that sounded more scared than sincere. He said he didn't know how deep it went. Said he was just trying to survive. Funny how survival always seems to require stepping on someone else. I didn't call him back. Because now I understood something important. This wasn't about betrayal anymore. This was about exposure. And exposure doesn't come quietly. What I didn't realize yet was that Elaine's visit had triggered a chain reaction, and within days, someone official would start asking questions Gerald couldn't dodge, charm, or lie his way out of. The first call came Thursday morning, not from a lawyer, not from Marcus, not even from Lydia. It was from a number marked private. Mrs. Williams, a man said, calm and clipped, this is Special Investigator Daniel Reyes. I'd like to ask you a few questions regarding financial activities connected to your husband. There it was, the moment everything tipped. I didn't panic, didn't deny, didn't overshare. I simply said I'll cooperate fully and gave him my lawyer's contact info. Clean, professional, unemotional. Gerald didn't take it so well. When he found out later that evening, he cracked, not dramatically, not loudly. Just collapsed. The confident man who thought he was 10 moves ahead was suddenly scrambling like a rookie who forgot the rules. They're asking about accounts from years ago, he said, pacing. Stuff that doesn't even matter anymore. I looked at him and felt nothing, no anger, no pity, just distance. It mattered then, I said. It matters now. Marcus showed up that night too, uninvited, desperate. He tried apologies again. Tried guilt, tried reminding me of who he used to be. I messed up, he said, but Dad dragged me into it. I didn't raise my voice, didn't argue. You stayed, I said. You benefited, that was your choice, he cried. Real tears this time, and for a second, just a second, I almost softened. Almost, but then I remembered the authorization attempt. The lies, the way he called me unstable to protect himself. So I opened the door and said, you need to leave, and he did. Over the next few weeks, everything unfolded exactly the way Elaine said it would. Investigations widened, accounts froze. Gerald's past came back like a boomerang with a grudge. Lydia's documentation sealed her exit clean. No damage, no exposure. Me, I walked away untouched because I had proof, because I spoke when it mattered. Because I stopped playing small. Gerald moved out, not dramatically, just quietly. Lawyers handled the rest. The house stayed mine. The peace, that was new, strange, addictive. One morning, I sat at the kitchen table, the same one where I'd once stirred soup while my life was being planned without me, and realized something wild. I wasn't surviving anymore. I was free, free from being underestimated. Free from carrying guilt that wasn't mine, free from people who thought my kindness meant weakness. Here's the truth nobody tells you until it's too late. The moment people stop seeing you as useful, they'll try to replace you. But the moment you stop accepting that role, everything changes. If you're listening to this and thinking this sounds familiar, if you've ever felt sidelined, ignored, or quietly betrayed, remember this: you don't need to be loud to be powerful. You don't need revenge to win, you just need clarity and receipts. If this story hit close to home, stick around. The next series dives into how people rebuild after betrayal and how quiet strength always outlasts dirty games. Like, follow, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Trust me, they do.